The City of Johannesburg mayor says she's confident that her mayoral committee will do a great job in governing the city. The 10-member multi-party committee was announced on the 13th of December. Just days after her election, Phalatse placed a moratorium on all vacancies in the city. She joins us now to tell us more about her plans. Dr. Mpho Phalatse, good morning to you and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now let us start off with what differences do you foresee the residents of the City of Johannesburg being able to see in the near future?
Well, I've always outlined very clearly what needs to happen from my point of view. Even before I put together the team of MMCs from different political parties, I outlined some priorities, including, restoring basic service delivery back to normal, making sure that the city is safe, the city is pro-poor with support programs for the poor, making sure that it's business-friendly and is able to attract investment that's needed to turn around the city, making sure the city is inclusive, that our development planning framework is indicative of the type of diversity that we have in Johannesburg, and making sure that it's well run through e-governance solutions in how we interface with our customers, particularly our residents, and lastly, ensuring that we bridge the digital divide. Now, that is a plan that I came into office with, but I've now put together a team of 10 MMCs. They're all from different political parties. They too had their own plans, different ideologies informing those plans. We've had induction for 4 days where we spent time with the officials in the city, looking at the city with a fine-tooth comb, looking at what's gone wrong and what needs to happen going forward. Now the MMCs have gone and they've put together their turnaround strategies per portfolio. From tomorrow onwards until Wednesday, we will be looking at those turnaround strategies, and thereafter we will be announcing our plans for the next few months. As you know, the financial year ends in June, at the end of June this year. And so that's the time frame that we will be focusing on before we start our plans for the next financial year. So those will be, they will be announced as soon as we've agreed and as soon as we've had the strategic planning session.
Now, of course, the big problem in what you have now inherited is the issue of the electricity connections, not just in Soweto, but even the illegal connections. I drove through into Kliptown recently within this past week, and you see those illegal connections there. What's the plan around that, Dr. Phalatse?
So the issue of illegal connections is quite complex, and it requires complex solutions. Firstly, you need to look at why there's a demand for illegal connections. It's usually in areas that do not have electricity, so it signals a need for electricity supply in underdeveloped areas, particularly your informal settlements, which is where it happens the most. We will need to look at electrifying as many settlements as we possibly can so that we take away the need to connect to the grid illegally. Of course, not everyone that connects illegally is in an underdeveloped area. Some are just because of acts of criminality, not wanting to pay and wanting to access electricity illegally and for free. And that will be resolved through law enforcement. We will be establishing a specialized unit that will focus on illegal connections because it's a big problem in Johannesburg, in various parts of the city, and it's setting us back. A lot of our ratepayers are not happy because they're paying for electricity, but they get all these outages because of these illegal connections. So that's the first thing, is we need to increase supply so that there's no need to connect illegally, but we also need to enforce to ensure that those who are doing it are dealt with and they experience the full might of the law. We are working on plans to increase our electricity supply capacity in the city. As you know, the city receives electricity currently from Eskom and from Calvin. We're looking at opening up to independent power producers who can help us increase our power supply capacity. There's been quite a lot of progress in that space, and we will be making announcements soon. But we will be working with IPPs to make sure that we're able to, A, stabilize the grid, B, we're able to offset load shedding, but while we do that, we're also able to stimulate competition between different power supply producers, also reduce the cost of supplying electricity to our residents.
Now, while we are on the issue of electricity, Dr. Phalatse, the issue around billing, the billing system within the city of Johannesburg. What are your plans with that? Just to give us, let us in to the plans that you may have around the billing system, specifically in Johannesburg, so that people actually get billed the right amount for whatever that they're using, things like water and electricity.
So the billing system is a problem and has been for many, many years. But one thing I need to say is that when the DA-led coalition government was in government between 2016 and 2019, we managed to sort out the backlog of billing queries. We had about 100,000 when we started, and by the end of the 3 years, they were down to only 9,000. So it is possible to deal with the backlog, even within the current framework. But what ultimately needs to happen is we need an upgrade of our billing system. As you know, there was a step upgrade underway in the city of Johannesburg, which basically manages the data that informs our billing and manages the flow of information between the entities and our revenue department. But as you know, that there was some corruption that was unveiled that was linked to the contract, the EOH contract. It was unveiled by the Zoda Commission, and we've since had to sever ties with the service provider, and we're now in the process of restarting that process. The MMC for Finance, who's also responsible for billing, comes from a programming background. I'm excited about her being the MMC because I know she'll be able to provide the type of leadership that's needed to make sure that we're managing data correctly, to make sure that our data management systems are upgraded and that they're able to serve the city and our residents, and to make sure that these billing challenges are a thing of the past. Another thing we're looking at is potentially decentralizing billing, because there was a time in the city when entities were interfacing directly with customers, and ever since we've centralized, we've seen that there's been greater problems. So we are looking at those two options, whether to maintain the centralized model and improve efficiencies, or to decentralize for better efficiency at the customer interface. And these are discussions that we will be having in the next 3 days in the strategic planning session. And when we make the announcement, we'll be able to give further detail.
You've mentioned the strategic planning session that you'll be having, and of course, saying that the financial year ends in June. But is it possible for you to give us more information of things like timeframes for the residents of Johannesburg, so that they know when they can start expecting the better services from the city?
Well, better services they will see immediately. You know, the fact that you've got a change of leadership that's committed, that's competent, that's dedicated and passionate and driven, and committed to our residents. People are already starting to see change. The winds of change are starting to blow. But in terms of specifics, where we're going to be rolling out specific programs, I think the best time to talk about timeframes is after we've agreed on exactly how we're going to be tackling these issues. And these are the deliberations that will be going on in the next 3 days. So by the end of Wednesday, we should be able to commit to what programs we will be implementing and what the turnaround times are going to be.
Dr. Mpho-Phalatse, thank you so much for your time this morning, and all the best for the year of 2022.